What is up, peeps? Coach Kev here on a Sunday night. Have the opportunity to be off this Sunday. Next two Sundays are bad, but getting back to the serial killer series. One of the reasons that I started a YouTube channel and the things that I got interested in, and cases happen and things like that, and we kind of jumped around a little bit, but getting back to the basics for me. Excuse me, or the bare bones of why I came into true crime and really got into it is the mind of these folks that do these series killings or serial killings. I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating the people that talk to them, that deal with them, that catch them, that hunt them, all of it. The way that they commit acts, the way that they do different things, like it's like almost a compulsion. What is up, Gibbo? Good to see you. But tonight, one of the ones I'm a little more familiar with, and we're going to deep dive, but we'll delve into stuff. But, I like to keep things hour and a half at the most. I don't like the 3-4 hour live streams. I just can't do them. I find it hard to believe anyone wants to listen to me talk that long. But we'll get into a lot of things, but there will be a lot left on the table. So we could do a ton of these Son of Sam things. But it's very interesting the way that it all worked out. And one of the fascinating things about Son of Sam is the landscape of the times in New York City, the things that were happening. In 76, they had the big blackout that was going on during this. They were telling people to go out in different parts and different boroughs. Girls are wearing blonde wigs. So this gripped an entire city. Especially borough, it's fascinating. And I'll talk at the end a couple, as I just want to start trying to do things where I get some of my information from and things that I think that are cool. But there's a couple movies and things like that I recommend that you check out if you're into this Son of Sam. And also Netflix, July 30th. Is the release date that I saw last, July the 30th. They're going to release the Son of Sam tapes. If you watch the Ted Bundy tapes, fascinating. You'll hear his voice. He'll be getting interviewed. He was interviewed by Robert Ressler and John Douglas. You watch the show Mindhunter. We'll talk about that too at the end. But anyways, before we get into it, we've had some beautiful weather here. The rain's finally let up. Now we've had a rain. We've had, our spots of rain. I was going to cut the grass today, but it rained quite a bit yesterday, but it's supposed to be a nice week. Supposed to have a nice 4th of July. We're still 6 days away from it. We're 5 days away from it, but there's only like a 7% chance of rain, which is awesome. We will be getting married, as 11 o'clock Eastern time. I have the thumbnail up for that. We'll do that live because, this is my channel. I like to show everybody everything. And it's going to be a very small event. The mayor of the town, my town, Mike's going to be doing it, my buddy, and we'll be in like a park setting. People walk and stuff like. I don't have to be walking on 4th of July, and they have like a little. I don't even know how to explain it. Yins will see it if you check it out. Won't be that long, but something to do. I don't know what time the hot dog eating contest is. If you watch that and see Joey Chestnut's back, I don't know if he'll be back this year, but if you're not from America, it's one of our great things that we do. And one of our culture spreaders is we stuff our faces with food quite a bit. And we've, made it competitive. Other countries do it too. The, Kobayashi guy was great. Not the attorney from Usual Suspects, but the hot dog eater. But anyways, we have that going on. A couple things, Netflix, Waterfront. The opportunity to watch it. It's great. Holt, I think his last name's pronounced McCarley, or I don't even know, Mick something. He was in Mindhunter. He's fantastic. And at Waterfront, it's about a fishing family that smuggles drugs and all the shit that goes in. It reminds me of Bloodline, if you ever watch Bloodline on Netflix. But anyways, the opportunity to check it out. And we're coming up on the anniversary of Kimmy Crim's disappearance. That'll be tomorrow, June 30th. She disappeared June 30th, 1998. She was discovered July, I think it was July the 6th, 5th or 6th. But she had been out for about a week in a very hot, humid climate. So a lot of things disintegrated. Things aren't what they were technology-wise back then that they are now. But, I talked to her sister at times, and she still talks to the county detective. So there's there's something going on. I don't know what, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm probably going to do a members only Tuesday, I think. We'll get to that here in a little while. And let's talk about David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. As we start to get into stuff here, I have a background to play. So let me make sure that showed up. I put another one in, and I put a 10-second, 15-second clip, like a general news clip of him like walking in, and it flagged me for it. You know, when I make them, I just make them for, here we go, for my eyes only. But anyways. So we just have a little background here for you to check out as I set this up, talking about David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. Let's make it a little bigger for you. There we go. So Berkowitz is interesting. Obviously, there's a couple different things at play here. He was a mixed series killer, serial killer. And here's the reason why I'm saying this. You know, I don't know, maybe professionals have different opinions, but here's the reason why. It was blitz style attacks, right? Girls in cars, usually on the passenger side. He could be close to the sidewalk because usually guys would be driving. So he would go in there, and it was about shooting the girls. He, shot the guy, but it was about shooting the girls. It was about exacting revenge on women, which he later admitted. Sexually frustrated. Found out things in his life. He was adopted. His parents had given him away, but kept other siblings. He found that out about the age of 14. And it makes you think Ted Bundy. It may have been a little bit younger when he found out that possibly that his grandfather was his father, had a relationship with his mother. At these formidable ages, some people can take that, and everyone that happens to does not become a killer. But with all the other stuff that was lined up in his life at that point, he was very rebellious, lit thousands of nuisance fires, according to his own testimony and his own, when he talks about things, but thousands of nuisance fires. And then he would relieve himself, if we will, as the firemen would come put him out, trash cans, things like that. So we talk about the McDonald triad or the homicidal triad, signs experienced or exhibited in youth. Some still follow that, some don't, but I think that there's something to it. It doesn't always mean it, but again, Jim Clemente quote with genetics, loading the gun, your psychology, aims the gun, and your life experiences pull the trigger. So it all kind of comes in together. Berkowitz was a former Army guy, kind of drummed out of there. Just a hard time, getting into society. Didn't have a family of his own, lived in an apartment. So again, you look unorganized, but he follows the newspapers so much where he communicates with the newspapers. He writes letters, and based on those letters, they don't necessarily find him. So he wrote letters. He wrote letters to the police. He wrote letters to Jimmy Breslin, the columnist from, I believe it was the New York Times. Hopefully it wasn't the Post. I have that right. But a big columnist at that time. And they exchanged letters in front of everyone in the newspaper. And based on the letters, they weren't able to figure out who he was or where he was. Then toward the end there, the parking ticket thing comes up. But we're going to lay all that out and talk about that. Some of the things that happened because of this is the son of Sam laws were different. It's state to state, and almost every state has one. And there's little intricacies and differences in the laws, but you can't profit from your crime. Gary Ridgway writes a book, or these people write books. Bundy, people like that wanted to do things like that, and they can't profit off it. So what happens is they don't even go to those people and, try to get, say you would have a former cop on a cop show. He would be like a contributor, and he would help. Hey, this is how it looks. So there's not even any sense to go with these people. So if they're making a movie about a serial killer that's alive, you could go talk to them, but you're not going to be able to pay them. You're not going to be able to use them in any way, shape, or form in the movie. And which is good, but some stories you want to hear and want to be told. Yes. So we'll talk about Breslin here. And what I'm going to get into here now, I'm going to start showing you guys some really good articles. And we're going to start out, if I'm pretty sure I have the right one, hopefully. This is John Douglas with the New York Post. So I'm going to share this tab instead. I'm sure we'll get some things up here asking if we want this or we want that. So he talks. I might have even shown this before. He talks about Manson a little bit, but it's very telling, very, very, very telling. They're talking about Mindhunter, and from what I can tell, Mindhunter season 3. There's not going to be a quote unquote season 3, but what's supposed to happen is I don't know the exact number, but 2 or 3 other movies, mini movies they're going to make. And that's how they're going to tie up Mindhunter. But we are going to see more of Mindhunter, which is absolutely wonderful. Hopefully they come shoot again in McKeesport, and I have some seniority in the fire department. Hopefully work my way onto some details there and maybe see someone. I was in that How to Rob a Bank. If you guys watch that, that's coming up next September. It's basically a movie about, it's Pete Davidson. There's another younger actor. Lenny Kravitz's daughter's in it. There was a lady, I can't remember what her name was, but we saw her, tiny little thing. She's in some of the Fast and the Furious movies. She was filming that day, but we just hung out in our bunker gear for like 10 hours, rode up on a bridge, jumped out, rode up on a bridge, jumped out 10 times, stood next to the truck, ran up 10 times. Just did a bunch of different stuff, but it looks like we're going to actually be in the movie. We're not going to get a credit or anything, but holy ads, right? Let me find here. Yeah, this is really good here because he talks about Berkowitz. When researching Berkowitz, he had surmised he had feelings of inadequacy. Douglas says Berkowitz killed out of resentment, low self-esteem, and prepared to use this to his advantage. So again, Berkowitz, lonely guy, strikes out with women, very sexually frustrated. He talks about his first sexual experience was with a sex worker at the time. And she had passed on a little something to him that he didn't intend on taking home, if you know what I mean. So, that was every woman's fault. This guy was so just, I don't want to say superficial, but every woman's fault. It was every woman's fault that his mother put him up for adoption, but kept other kids. So he just looked at it like that, and he would just blame, a segment of society. But we've seen that many times before. He and his partner, Bob Repsler, who died in 2013, encourage you to read all Bob Repsler's books, all John Douglas's books if you can. Interviewed Berkowitz at Attica when the son of Sam Killer was brought before him. Douglas was struck by the way his very blue eyes kept dodging between me and Bob. He was trying to read our faces and gauge whether we were being sincere. So Mindhunter, if you go back and you watch season 2 of Mindhunter, the guy's name's Oliver Cooper. He does a fantastic job of that. Once I read this article and I went back and watched Mindhunter again, they clearly are pushing that. His eyes are just boom, 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 back and forth. So what do we talk about? We talk about serial killers. They sometimes make some of the best profilers. So it's what he's doing. It's his process. So once he begins to trust John Douglas, as we get in here, then we get to the nitty gritty of it all. After explaining that the interview was to help law enforcement solve future cases and possibly help intervene with children who displayed violent tendencies, Douglas brought a newspaper out with the Son of Sam headline. He's talking about now Dennis Rader, BTK. So if you watch the Mindhunter episode, you'll see this scene play out. David, in Wichita, Kansas, there's a killer who calls himself BTK Strangler. He mentions you in his letters to the media and police, Douglas told him. He wants to be powerful like you. His ego assuaged, and the killer opened up. So right there, boom. He wants to be big like you, these guys are giving me my respect. So at the end of the day, Berkowitz, born again Christian, he could say this, he could say that. He's still a killer. I don't know. I guess hopefully for his sake, his Christianity is true, but I think it's a load of horse shit. I think this guy's a manipulator all the way, and he will be till he dies. And they talk about the physical change. Berkowitz leaned back in his chair, adjusted himself in a more comfortable position, and said, "What do you want to know?" You could physically see these changes. The primal changes happen. John Douglas, wrestler, they talk about these things. Jim Clemente, where you could see a physical change in people. So this is where the profilers and the body language people come together. They're not always right all the time, but there is something to it. People to say either junk science to me is absolute horseshit. There's tons of science to it. Nothing's right 100% of the time, but these guys have a pretty high percentage, and mistakes are made here and there, but by and large, this is why everyone goes to this every time, and they go to these methods and means. Douglas writes that he developed a rapport with Berkowitz to point out where the investigator could call the serial killer out on his lies. At one point, Berkowitz began talking about Sam, supposedly possessed dog that drove him to kill his infamous moniker. And John Douglas says, "Hey, David, knock off the bullshit. The dog had nothing to do with it." He laughed and nodded. He writes and conceded that he was right. So basically, Berkowitz thought, I'm sure he knew who Robert Ressler and John Douglas was, if not by name. He knew that the FBI had a behavioral analysis unit. This is behavioral science, whatever it was at the time. This is the organized part of David Berkowitz, where he followed these things. I believe he knew this. He talked about watching the Exorcist movie just recently and being possessed, and it was just kind of like a built-in thing, demons in the walls. But once he came up against someone he felt was worthy to give him that information, he gave it to him. One of the most interesting insights Douglas gained from Berkowitz is that he was always thinking about these murders, to the point that on a night when no victim's opportunity was available, he would return to the sites where he successfully killed to, you could see, take care of himself, relieve the sensation of power, sexual energy he derived from the crime itself. This would, make no mistake, these were sexually motivated killings. 44 Bulldog, right? Wow, how's that a sexually motivated killing? That's what it was all about. And when they wrote in the paper that the gun might represent his penis and overcompensating for it with the bigger gun, he had a huge problem with it because, in my opinion, it was dead on, and absolutely dead on. And getting back to something else, which is a theory I have, Berkowitz knew someday that the son of Sam, the dog talking thing, would blow up on him, and he would be called out on it. I think the next thing was the Christianity thing, which he's been milking for the next however many years. But Rader, yeah, we get into Rader. We've done things on him. We'll do other things on him too. But I wanted just to kind of open up with that, with some John Douglas stuff, and then let's get to the nitty gritty of it. I'll pop in and see if anyone got any good comments or questions. But we'll lay out basically the whole kind of case, or the case study, I should say. We're not going to talk about the case, the trial or anything like that. But what's up, Frank Meister? Yeah, June 30th, Gibbo, if we're talking about that. Son of Sam, I believe it's just called the Son of Sam tapes, like they did the Ted Bundy one. If you haven't watched the Ted Bundy one, go back and watch it. It's extremely interesting. You're hearing these guys in their own words, and it's something else. It's a little different when you hear them from their own words. It almost would be good if you could see them talking too, but hearing their voice, the crackle in their voice, and just, Ted Bundy, like whispering, it's and there's a couple videos where he talks, where he's getting interviewed, and the body language people, say this and that, and it's just, you can find those on YouTube, by the way, if you ever want to watch them. It's very chilling. So I don't know if you knew this. David Berkowitz was born Richard David Felko on June 1st, 1953 in Brooklyn. His unmarried parents separated shortly before he was born. He was put up for adoption. His adoptive parents switched his first and middle names and gave him their surname. From a young age, Berkowitz began to slowly show early signs of his violent future behaviors. While he was above average intelligence, again, that leans to what? Organized. He lost interest in school and focused on more rebellious habits. Berkowitz got involved in petty larceny and pyromania. So again, the larceny thing, petty larceny, you're thinking of cars. What these guys will also do, especially if they're hands-on killers, asphyxiators, killing with knives or smaller weapons, they'll do break-ins too. They'll steal people's stuff in their houses. That's more intimate than a car, but a car is intimate too. So you're in their intimate space. And I would assume that he would probably target women's cars or cars that he thought were women's cars, and he would get off on that. When he was 14, Berkowitz's adoptive mother died of breast cancer. His relationship with his adopted father and his new stepmother grew strained. So the adopted father who took care of him had a new stepmother. So now he was kind of like double removed. So he had a really big problem with this. And then this was around, I don't think it has in here, it was around the time that he kind of found out about his family, his regular family or his birth family and what it was. He entered the Army in 1971, served both the U.S. as well as South Korea. He was honorably discharged 3 years later. I said he was drummed out. I didn't mean to say drummed out like that, but there was definitely issues there. Berkowitz tracked down his birth mother, Betty Felka. His mother told him about his illegitimate birth and the recent death of his birth father, which greatly upset Berkowitz. He eventually lost contact with his birth mother and began working a number of blue-collar jobs. So that, too, then he found out that they had other kids that they kept, and he was the only one that they gave up. And it was because of the time they were in their relationship. You know, the other kids came, there was rough and there was problems, but they were still trying to fix things. By the time David came, it was over. According to his own reports, being his killing Christmas Eve 1975 when he stabbed 2 women using a hunting knife. One of the women, Michelle Foreman, and the other has never been identified. So this was like outside of a store. And this is an example, too. You're talking stabbing to shooting. Well, he talks about this a little bit. I can never get the actual, what happened. Was he looking for these 2 girls? Was he looking for any 2 girls? What exactly was it? What was going on? But he moved up to the gun. He knew he couldn't get it done stabbing, right? So he moved up to the gun and he found I have pictures of it. I'll show you the .44 Bulldog. And then we just go through and we talk about things like that, the different murders that he had, the people that he shot, the manhunt underway, Jimmy Breslin. Okay. Got something else, one more thing along these lines to show you, which I find it very interesting. I believe this is the one. The different sites. I mean, you need to, some of these sites, I guess, here, you got to make sure that everything's legitimate on them. But 44 caliber killer, that's what he used, the 44 caliber Bulldog. Talk about birth, adoption. Early childhood development, early warning signs, behavioral issue described as spoiled, difficult, bullying by those who knew him. Young David exhibits signs of aggression towards other children. Pyromania, developed assassination of fire setting to continue into adulthood, eventually documenting over 1,400 fires he claimed to have set throughout New York City. 1,400 fires. Petty larceny, Berkowitz engaged in theft and other minor criminal activities in youth. These never resulted in serious legal consequences. But it's the textbook case of things that we see. But nothing that went to the police that appeared to border on like violent, very violent stuff. The childhood trauma, adoptive mother, dies, turning point in his life, became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. His family now, like I said, his stepdad, who took care of him, adopted father, moved on. I don't know how much the other mother, he was at an awkward age. He was an awkward kid. And she had some girls, so she might have even been a little bit, the devastating discovery we talked about, and shortly after that, things get set off here, 76 to 77. There are the things he does. Started in October of 1976, the first gun violence. Then he's out in November, January, March, April, June, July. So he's pretty active. He's every month or once every 2 months. So he was going to continue this if they didn't catch him. He talked about hunting every night, going out and hunting every single night, constantly, looking, surveilling people. Obviously, that we know the dog thing's bullshit. So the psychological evaluations, diagnoses, paranoid schizophrenic. Some evaluators initially diagnosed Berkowitz with schizophrenia based on his claims of hearing voices and demonic possession. So now that's probably going to be at BBS because he won over a lot of those shrinks, but he didn't win over John Douglas and Robert Ressler. So we don't think he was hearing voices. Personality disorder, yes. Antisocial personality, psychopathic traits, noting his lack of empathy, manipulative behavior, absence of remorse. 1,000% agree with all that. Antisocial personality disorder, for sure. Malingering. Several patients, psychiatrists concluded Berkowitz was feigning psychiatric symptoms to avoid responsibility. So they were right. We found that out later. Psychological motivations, identity crisis, discovery of his adoptive and biological parents. Again, the Ted Bundy thing. We've seen this multiple times. Misogyny. Berkowitz harbored deep-seated hatred toward women, possibly stemming from feelings of abandonment by his birth mother, the depth of his adoptive mother, first sexual experience with a professional, what took him home, got burnt, held that against him. His need for recognition, his letters to the media and police revealed a desperate desire for attention and notoriety. He was just some average Joe, but these letters made him someone else. Power and control. Have we heard that before? The killing gave Berkowitz a sense of power and control lacking in his ordinary life as a postal worker. With their jokes, you can write themselves about the post office. They've gotten a lot better, I guess, because, knock on wood, that hasn't happened in a while. People going quote unquote postal, but these are the things. It's the same things over and over. That's why Berkowitz is such a good case study, because he shows you when they talk about serial killer traits and things like that, he has almost all of them. You know what I mean? As we could tell, he wasn't abused as a child by his parents. They may have been strict or stern, but so that's kind of maybe missing here. But there's just so many other things that line up. Pyromania and escalation, trial and sentencing, the son of Sam laws we talked about. We know about the pyromania, religious conversion. Like I said, I don't know. I don't subscribe to that too much. I think that he's a constantly just going to be working you. I really do. I'll get you back here in a second. But he could do, he could start his own churches or do whatever he wants to do. But what are we doing here? I'll make that a little bigger for you. Give me 1 second. I had a weird way to do it, but I did it. What is up, Louise? What is up, Mustang? CJK, good. Thanks for listening. Working on the house. I think I got everybody there. But so, yeah, again, you have your military guy, and I don't know how much he got into wanting to be a cop, but I would have to think at some point he wanted to be a police officer, or maybe attempted to be a police officer. But he would talk about hanging out in local taverns and stuff like that, and diners where he knew the local cops went. So he would have a killing, and then he would start hanging out at local diners to see if, hey, are these cops talking? Is there anything that he can get, or he can glean, or he can gain? We knew that Ed Kemper did the same thing. So it was, he's just like a textbook case of so many of these things line up, so many of these things that we always talk about. But military guy, and again, there were some issues there. Not a lot of that it came out. I've heard things about that, but let's talk about a couple of things that if you want to watch or you want to check out, and it helps dive into more things. And I was talking about this before. So Summer of Sam, Spike Lee. Spike Lee's when I grew up, he was really like a big director, and he directed a lot of movies that I liked, and I still enjoy today. Do the Right Thing. It was a fantastic movie. But Summer of Sam, and with the thing, here's the thing with the Son of Sam. You go up and you shoot somebody, and John Douglas says later he had the assassin tendencies, but not like your typical assassin. It was a sexually driven assassin thing. It wasn't a God complex like a lot of assassins are, but I'm going to show you an article on that in a little while. There's his neighbor Sam and his dog. That was the dog that supposedly told him to kill, but later, he recanted that and admitted it wasn't that. But anyway, Summer Sam. So it shows you the neighborhood. There's a lot of things that play. John Leguizamo, I think Marissa Tomei, probably late 90s, maybe early 2000s, something like that. It's called Summer Sam. Fantastic movie. The Son of Sam killings are kind of like the background, and it's how everyone reacts to it. And there's people that wear blonde wigs, and they go out to the club and no one's there because everyone's afraid to go out. Then there's the power outage. They have the great, power outage, and everyone's really scared, and it's crazy hot out. And as we showed you before, he's escalating. He's every month, every 2 months. He's not going to slow down. If anything, he's going to speed up at his age. He's not going to age out. This guy's not going to get too close and stop doing it. He can't stop himself. He's compelled to do it. So even to this day, with his born again Christian thing that he his born again Christian rap, he still gets excited about it. And these letters are everywhere. You could Google Son of Sam letter or DuckDuckGo it, image search it, and look at some of these letters. And him and Jimmy Breslin's exchange. When I read some of these letters, I don't know if you guys are old enough. Well, probably everyone in this chat's old enough to remember the movie Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. What was his name? Travis. I forget what his last name was in the movie. But there's a lot of that like the stench of New York City, the gutter, people need to go in the gutter or stuff like that. There's a lot of these letters remind me of that. But I have a picture. One of these pictures is the 44, I think it's called Fair Trade or Trade Arms, 44 Bulldog revolver. And when someone in the paper, I believe it was Breslin, I'm not 100% sure, had written a commentary that they were theorizing that the handgun represented an inadequacy for the killer's penis. Turned out he was right, and it was true. So now I don't know if that's something he came up with on his own, or if it was like, there it is right there, or if it was the police, someone in the police department saying, hey, say this, maybe we could spook him or get him to make a mistake. If anything, I think it would piss him off and make him kill, but maybe they were trying to force him to make a mistake. This gun is a lot bigger in person than it kind of looks there. You see a lot of automatic weapons, but if that comes up on you, I have a pretty big hand. That gun, I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably taken up most of my hand. So that's a pretty big weapon. And he's taking the shells with him. It's a revolver, but he would return to the scene. So we heard that from Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy talked about that before. I'm almost positive before Berkowitz was interviewed by Douglas and by Rustler, because you're talking a year or two after his trial. That trial and everything has to happen. This is a big thing, or a plead or whatever, all that stuff sets up. That takes a year or two. This is a huge case. People don't want to make mistakes. There is David Berkowitz on the left and Oliver Cooper in season 2 of Mindhunter, who does an absolutely outstanding job. If you watch series 2 of Mindhunter, still on Netflix, check it out. And again, if you're just popping in, July 30th, they're going to have the David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam tapes. So, but every day, this is every day. These people are freaking out. The newspapers, do they feed into it a little bit? Yeah, because it's selling papers. But people were buying papers every day. They wanted to know what was going on. Did somebody get killed? What borough is he in? What's he doing here? Yeah, sexually frustrated, hated women, hated the birth mom. And they nail it. They nail it early on. They kind of know what they're looking for. But again, we talk about that organized killers are harder to catch than unorganized killers. And that is correct. Most of these killers don't have any victimology or personal relationship. This isn't something that some girl they're infatuated with work, and then they follow her, and then something goes wrong and they end up killing them. They don't necessarily go in to kill other people. But what he's doing is he's looking for a certain girl with dark hair, passenger side of a car, lover lanes, things like that. Maybe catch them in the act to show them, hey, you're doing this with this guy here. If you could have done this with me, if you'd have done this with me, you wouldn't be dead right now. I have some kind of weird power or control over you, to the point where they had police officers in some of these lovers lanes, and there would be a guy and there would be another guy next to him with the wig on. So from the back, and they would try to find smaller male officers from the back, it would appear that, hey, they're looking for everybody. They're not looking like they're looking, but they're making sure if someone's coming up, then they're going to start acting like something's going on. But, they're both going to be at the ready, but they never were able to catch them with that. We talk about the parking ticket. I'll show you an article here toward the end where we talk about that, and the parking ticket kind of catches them. And then from there, and they get to him, they get to his apartment, they wait for him to come out. They see his car parked at his apartment, and he absolutely gives it up immediately. Like immediately, like he had, he wanted to tell everyone this was me. He's one of these guys where if he doesn't get caught, he's going to continue to poke and continue to prod and continue to try to put his hand in the cookie jar until he does get caught. Look at BTK, Dennis Rader. I mean, you're almost 20 years later, and you're writing letters and you're leaving things. I mean, you just can't shut the fuck up. And a lot of these people cannot do that. And they want to talk after. And he wants to talk. But he can only talk media-wise once he's saved, right? Once he becomes this born-again Christian in his mind, he now has this high ground or whatever. Hey, I did what I did, but I'm a born-again Christian, so that's okay. And if he is, good for him ultimately. But like I said, I don't buy his shit. But he has to control that narrative at all times. What John Douglas and Robert Ressler got him to do was give up control just for a second and admit, yeah, this dog didn't make me do this. I'm sexually frustrated, things like that. I put a lot of pictures in here too that were just, you need to paint the time. You need to understand the time. That's why the Spike Lee movie is so good. Summer of Sam, to understand that time. It was almost 50 years ago. Well, it was 50 years ago, just about, since that spree happened. Next year will be the 50-year anniversary. Let me go back. We'll run it back here. The 50-year anniversary of it. So it was a different time, and it was something that they talk about whenever Roger Maris's hitting streak or Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak, Roger Maris's game played. That wasn't as big, but did he get a hit today? Did he get a hit today? And that's what everyone asked everyone. That's how you would meet people in the street with conversation. Hey, you got a hit today. I remember in the summer, I guess it was, 98 or maybe around 98, the Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire home run thing. You would ask people, hey, did they hit one today? Did either of them hit one today? Did they hit one today? That's what you would kind of talk about. People in 1976 would say, did he get anyone last night? Where was he at? Where did he strike at? Neighborhood vigilantes would go around, different ethnic groups, right? There'd be black people going around. There'd be some middle class white people. There'd be some white trash people. There'd be some Hispanic people, and they would kind of look, their own neighborhood over. But the thing about Berkowitz is you kind of look at him and you're like, he's kind of maybe a little bit of a goofy looking dude. But if he's walking down the street in New York City, he had a good way to hide himself and just blend in. He doesn't look like an absolute maniac. He's not 6'8". He's like a hulking, lumbering guy. But yeah, as far as I know, Louise was the antisocial personality disorder. Now, early on, like we talked about, he was diagnosed with some kind of schizophrenia, but then there was other people all along that didn't believe it. Now, I shouldn't say I know this, but I believe it's widely accepted that he did not have schizophrenia, that he had gotten over on those shrinks back in 1976 and 77. Yins. So yins is the Pittsburgh word for, like, some people say y'all, or hey, what yins doing? Hey, where yins going? So that's yins. That's just it's just a Pittsburgh shirt, like rubber band. Yeah, I believe that to be true, Louise, about the gun. Like I said, it was I think it was Breslin. You can look up the article, but he got pissed about it, like pissed about it. So that tells me it hit its mark. So it always makes me wonder, did some of the police put him up to saying that, and then maybe they wanted him to react and make a mistake mad? I don't know. But if you're doing that, you're kind of using the people of New York City as bait. But what's up, BC? Good to see you. I don't know, though. You hear detectives talk, hey, the worst thing that can happen is if this person commits this offense again. However, we will have more information after each crime. But anyways, there is military pictures, and there was some hard to take, don't want to take authority, And that's just, again, that it all dovetails with Berkowitz. Like I said, there's so many things there representing. But let me show you an article here, and I find it a really good article. Oh, let me find it. There we go. It is a good one. It'll probably be the last thing I show you. Pretty sure this is it. Yeah, so this is like on and off to the side thing. This isn't like a major. Make sure I got the right thing here. But I find it very, very interesting here. If anybody wants any of this or wants me to email it to them, if you're into Berkowitz, or anybody that's going to do a show about Berkowitz that wants any kind of background or stuff, I'll share. I have quite a bit of stuff. It's readily available, though. So Robert Ressler, again, one of the veterans that started the behavior analysis unit, Mindhunter, he's actually the one that's given credit for the term serial killer, coming up with it. He interviewed Berkowitz and Attica 3 times. Berkowitz had been allowed to keep a scrapbook he compiled of all the newspaper stories about the murders. He used these scrapbooks to keep his fantasies alive. Ressler made it clear he didn't buy the demon dog theory one bit, and eventually he was able to get the truth out of Berkowitz. The demon story was to protect him when and if he was caught, so that could try to convince the authorities he was insane. He admitted to Ressler his real reason for shooting women was out of resentment toward his own mother, and because of his inability to establish good relationships with women. He'd become sexually aroused in the stalking and shooting of women, and then would take care of himself after it was over. So we talk about these things. You wonder where you get these from. So much came from them talking to David Berkowitz. So, you hate to give him credit, because if he would hear me say it, not that I'm a big deal, but anybody saying it, he was kind of a turning point in hunting serial killers. There was so much information. And he's a guy that, again, he ain't going to shut the fuck up. He wants to talk. He wants to talk on his own terms. I was talking about Christianity and stuff like that. But these guys got to him. He admitted to Ressler that stalking women had become a nightly adventure for him. If he didn't find a victim, he would go back to the scenes of earlier murders, try to recall them. We talked about that before. He wanted to go to the funerals of his victims, but was afraid that the police would become suspicious. However, he did hang around diners, police stations, hoping to overhear policemen talking about his crimes. He also tried unsuccessfully to find the graves of his victims. Anything to get that release. He was constantly searching for that just absolutely bizarre and weird sexual release. He wanted to go to funerals, but afraid of police. It's kind of crazy, but now we know that comes to happen, and they will post people there, and they will look for people, and they will take pictures of people at funerals. I know they do that at fires. They would ask us, not as much anymore because the fire marshals, they're pretty quick, but they'll take pictures of what ends up being in the crowd. They don't let people know, but if people are standing around watching, they'll snap pictures of them. Just to see if anything lines up, if anyone recognizes anything, or if they start looking at pictures and this guy keeps popping up, well, this fire was in this neighborhood. What's he doing over in this neighborhood 10 o'clock at night? Maybe there's an answer. Maybe he owns a house. Maybe his mother lives there. Maybe his guma lives there. But anyways, like many serial killers, he nourished a sick ego from the newspaper attention he received for his crimes. He got the idea of sending the letter to Jimmy Breslin from a book on Jack the Ripper. Ressler found out that after the press started calling him Son of Sam, he adopted the moniker as his own and even fashioning a logo for it. So he gets called the Son of Sam, then boom, he responds to making the logo. It was almost like they did it together in a sick way. David Berkowitz and the media, both heavily profiting from it. And I guess, to a certain extent, actually probably to a decent extent, it helped him get caught. Stories repeated time after time in every city experiencing attacks of a serial killer, the demands of the citizens to know what is happening balanced against reality, that feeding these demands for information virtually ensures the killer will keep on killing. Legitimate police work is seriously hampered by a deluge of bogus tips from well-meaning citizens. The only party that benefits this from common problem is the media. Yeah, well, you're right. It is the media, right? The media it is what it is, and they got a big story, and of course they're going to run it. They're going to do what they're going to do with it. But hey, David, good to see you. You might be a little bit older than me because I was born 79, so I don't really remember that far back. Yeah, BTK. He listed a couple other, the Wichita Strangler, or different things like that. What they would show is they showed him the logo that BTK had and said it was kind of a knock on Berkowitz's logo. So I don't know if they really, I guess you could look at it. If you look at the two, you could compare them. I don't have pictures of them, but if you look at the two, you could kind of compare them and say, hey, maybe they are similar. Or if that was a dig, or not a dig, but like a pat on the back to Berkowitz, like, hey, listen, we really like you. Look, this guy's pretending to be you. That's how special you are. That's how, building the rapport with Berkowitz got all this out. So basically, when they go talk to him now, I don't know how much he even wants to talk about his previous crimes or his killings, but he will. You just got to let him get his shit out about his religion. Mustang Yins, instead of saying y'all or you guys, we say Yins. What Yins doing Saturday night? Where Yins going to watch the game? That's a Pittsburgh thing, Yins. I've never heard it said anywhere else. I don't know if they say it anywhere else. I think that's like a Pittsburgh thing. Like downtown. We got company coming over. Hurry up, red up the house. We have gum bands here. We drink pop. David was 22 and 77. David, you're around my mom's age. You'd have been right in the time that you probably would have been following it. Yeah. And Eastern PA, you're not, depending on where you are, if you're up north there, you're not that far from New York City. My fiance, soon to be wife here on Friday, Brooke, her daughters and her mom went to New York City yesterday. They were up there. Her daughter goes to Temple, so they went to Philly, picked her up. Her brother lives in New Jersey, which is right where he lives is right across the Ben Franklin Bridge there, right across from Philly. So they went there, stayed there Friday night, spent the day in New York yesterday. Woke up this morning, went to Ocean City, New Jersey for the day. Now they're heading back to her brother's and be taking a train back tomorrow, and I'll be picking them up in Greensburg, which is only about 25, 30 minutes away up Route 30 tomorrow. So Mustang was 2. So you're a little bit older than me, Mustang, but not very much. I was born in 79. But yeah, anything, it's just very interesting. Like, with the Son of Sam, you could deep dive each individual thing. You could talk about his childhood. You could talk about his killing, why he picked people. Again, if you want to watch a movie, Summer of Sam, and there's not a ton of Son of Sam in it. I don't even know if they ever even show his face. They might just show like his background or something like that. But just to understand the time and the paranoia and the fear that gripped New York City. The Mindhunter season 2, I'm not sure what episode. The guy's name Oliver Cooper is fantastic. Good news on that. Again, Mindhunter is supposed to be releasing 2 or 3 movie type episodes to close out the series instead of doing another season. So I think you're going to see something like an hour and a half long, 2 or 3 of those to close it out, which will be fantastic. There's another thing on Netflix called The Sons of Sam, Descent into Darkness. And there's a journalist called Maury Terry who believed there was a cult, a satanic cult, that were doing these killings and other killings. He was a very passionate guy. It's an interesting documentary. I don't believe the theory, but if you're doing research on the Son of Sam, it's interesting. He had a relationship, but he talked to Berkowitz, and the guy was a very, very spirited guy and poured his heart and soul into it. So that's why I watched the story, because the kind of enthusiasm he had. But I just don't buy into the theory, but it's something for you to check out if you'd like to check it out. There's a lot of good just general documentaries if you look at them on YouTube, but I'd encourage Summer of Sam to get the background information. I also told you Netflix Waterfront, fantastic series. Holt McCarney, I'm probably saying his name wrong, from Mindhunter, plays the dad. Really good series. Fishing, drug smuggling, booze, scandal, politics, drugs, your typical good Netflix series. So, yeah. So Tuesday, I plan to have a members only, might be a general live too, just to talk about a couple different things. You guys are always the first to know everything that I get to do, and just the channel getting back to more of these type things, and also what other ideas you have, what other type of things. I don't want to just do like, hey, come on and do serial killer profiles. I want to mix things up. I always show you parts of my life, different things like that. But is there any other thing we want to do? You want to see guests? What kind of guests? What do you want to talk about? Do you ever want to do like a sports show, a food, whatever the hell? It's a true crime show, and I get it, but we talk about a lot of different things. Kevlar148gmail.com if there's any ideas, anything you'd ever like to see. Moving forward, Flora stuff, I'm done with Delphi. I'm not going to do anything else there, I don't think, because it's a wrap there. But any other things like that, recurrent cases, Huerman. I plan to talk a little bit in my members only Tuesday about Kimmy. Her disappearance will be, I think today's the 29th, so tomorrow, the 30th. Stuff that's been going on there. I have videos of it, the crime scene and stuff like that. I went up there and walked around. It's many years later, but it's still, it pretty much looks the same. No, just for like, instead of saying y'all or something, where y'all going? We say, where yin's going. Or what are y'all up to? We say, what are yins up to? It's just the very Pittsburgh thing. Now, I haven't talked to Charles in a while. Charles is doing his own thing, and hey, God bless him. But yeah, I definitely want to have something, just, probably once a month, do something for Flora. I'll do something on that coming up. Like that, there's no new information, right? We're not beating a dead horse, but someone got to get in front of somebody. We have to get a video that gets in front of the right person, and they say, I can't take this anymore. I have to come on and talk about it. I follow a lot of the local forums, the town forums, where they're buying and selling stuff, and there's giving jobs. There's interesting things in there. So I do follow that stuff just to see if there's anything. But many people have some interesting theories, and I've got a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of emails and stuff like that from people. But somebody got to talk on that. Somebody has to talk. So I hope you found tonight interesting. We're going to get out of here. The Son of Sam stuff. So the gun, in my opinion, was a representation of his probably undersized member. He had trouble with women. His first sexual experience, he took a little extra home with him, free of charge from a pro. Mom, kind of left him to be adopted, kept the other kids. Had a death at age 14. Stepdad kind of went on with his own life. Berkowitz was at a weird age. So all these different things happened, and it lines up for him. And it was like almost very early on. Someone could have picked this out. Like, man, this kid here, maybe you could look at it now. And I don't even know if you could do anything, because you can't grab a little kid and put him in jail. But you could say, this kid's fucked up. We need to watch him. There's things going on here. If something happens, if he gets a big stressor or something bad happens, we need, but it is what it is. And it's almost impossible to do. Yeah, and unfortunately, there was something the police they're not, it's not linked. Like, people needed to know. And once they did know, they panicked, so to speak. But at the same time, I'd rather have them panic and on high alert. So, it was what it was. And it didn't stop Berkowitz. It didn't stop him at all. What's up, JJ? Hello from Kentucky. Sounds nice and warm down there in Kentucky. Nice and warm here. No complaints about it, though. Feel great. Arthritis. Feels fantastic. But hey, I'm going to leave you to it. I hope everybody enjoyed tonight. Son of Sam. Look for a thumbnail for members only. Next Friday, I'll be getting married, 11 o'clock. It'll be live here on YouTube with a very small, short ceremony, nothing fancy. But I like to share everything with you, and I thought that would be cool. And it also gives some Brooks family the opportunity to watch, because they will be out of town and we'll get to see it. So I'm going to leave you to it. I'm having my drink of my Market District Peach Oolong Tea, which is fantastic. And I'm going to open up the door to the podcast room, because there's no cold air returns in here. So it's hot, but I'm cool with it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope everyone has a great end of their weekend here at Sunday, a great upcoming week, and I'll talk to you guys all soon. Members only Tuesday, maybe a whole live. We'll see what the day holds. See what we can do.